This is my friend's 1979 Honda XR80. He wanted me to get it running good. Needs a carb clean. Last time we fired it up, didn't want to run too well. Definitely had signs of a dirty pilot jet. Looks like we got a little fork seal leakage going on, but so it's a really fun little bike. And this is the first bike I've ever ridden. I kept hitting the front brake too hard and I kept dumping it and I actually sprained my ankle. And then a few weeks later, I got a bike 3 times as big as this 250 Kawasaki, which is kind of funny. But what we're gonna do is just kind of go through this like I would anything else. First thing, clean that carb. I set the valves long ago, but we can check them if we need to. We're gonna get this running, see how it sounds, and then kind of go through some other things like oil up the cables, make sure the brakes work, oil up the chain, maybe repaint some stuff. I'm not gonna be doing a fork rebuild, but we can kind of clean this up, try to get any dirt out of there that we can with the seal saver. First thing we're gonna do, check that plug. Looks pretty normal. Really smells like old gas though. We'll just put that back in, but how old is the gas in here? Oh yeah, it's definitely got that old smell. Man, this reminds me of my first motorcycle was a 75 or 6 XL 100, and that tank was so rusty and it just reeked of old gas. And that just reminds me of old motorcycles when I smell that. So that's fine. We'll just put that back there. This will just kind of on there, kind of all smushed. We can fix that. Check the air filter. It's probably got a mouse nest in there. And then notice this kicker's hitting the case. Probably going to move it back a spline. But we're going to change oil on here too. See if this is a dipstick, what the oil looks like. Black. Who knows when it was changed last? I know this bike sits a lot because it's always had a little bit of an issue maybe, and it just sat for a long time, but this thing's complete minus the side covers. Yeah, drums front and rear. Probably gonna give this thing a wash, maybe repaint some stuff at the end, make it look nice. Change oil, fresh gas, clean carb, fix this throttle cable. So this is stuck and it's probably something in here, so I'm gonna look at that first. But brakes, ooh, that might be a little worn out unless this cable's just way adjusted wrong. Get in, sit down, shut up, hang on. Missing some letters. Seat's okay until you get back here, but original seat cover, I bet you. Rear fender's broken, but it's been drift stitched, so it's fine. Fairly new tire on it. Shocks are cranked all the way up, you know. I thought it was bent, but that's just how the spring looks. Stock exhaust, a lot of slop here, and if I back this way out, it tightens up. But it feels like something's getting stuck in here. So I can't really figure out what's going on here besides that. It could be getting stuck on this lip. Like this is maybe just worn out. Unless it's stuck on the other side of the carburetor, like the slide is stuck. Yeah, we don't have any movement. We got a little bit of movement, but not much. So that's telling us that something's up with the carburetor side. All right, so this thing is dirty. It's been sitting for a long time. You can see that slide is stuck in there. So I think I'm just gonna have to soak it with some PB Blast and let it sit. Maybe some Marvel Mystery Oil. I actually have a concoction made up of ATF and a little bit of mineral spirits. I heard that works well. I don't know, maybe we'll dump some of that in there. Now we wait. Ugh. Oh man. Oh, I think it's starting to move. Oh, it's moving. It's moving. I just don't want to scratch it up or damage nothing. Wow. It's going, but man. Ow. Ow. Ooh. I got it. Ah, my hand. Wow, that's really varnished. These are sat for a long time, and he's probably running 87 with that ethanol in it. We're gonna open up this bowl, and we're gonna know for sure what's in here. Well, we got nothing coming out there. I'm gonna take this all the way out though. Oh, we got some green gas. So that's part PB Blaster, but the gas that just came out of here is green. Green like ethanol. Let's see what we got in here, man. So probably 2-3 years ago, we got this thing running, and it was running rough. That mixer screw didn't want to really adjust much. It was boggy. So that tells us that the pilot jet's getting clogged. And that was like 2-3 years ago. So with this old gas in here, I bet you I know what it's going to look like. It's definitely got some brown crap down in the bottom.
You are nothing but garbage. Nothing but garbage.
Oh yeah, right there. Green. Green, green, green. I'm going to try to knock this pin out. But you got to be careful because sometimes these will just crack off. This is probably one of the first things I learned how to fix on a motorcycle. What was the carburetor? This has a rubber tip needle, so that's in good shape yet, but now you can really see crud. We're going to take apart anything that's rubber in here before we soak it, because carb cleaner is not good for rubbers. Take out the pilot jet, see if we can see light through there. I doubt it. Main jet, so this controls how the bike runs wide open. In between that is the needle. Between idle to quarter throttle is this pilot jet here. It's coming apart easy. Main jet looks all right. Oh, yeah, it's clogged. She clogged. I'm gonna pull this out because this could be, yeah, there's some holes in here. We got some green schmoo. Definitely one of the worst carbs I have seen in a long time. Then we're gonna soak it. I just been using mineral spirits or lacquer thinner. Soak it in that, spray it down, brake clean, scrub all this out, let the jet soak in there, scrub everything, blow it out with air. It leaves a residue on stuff and it'll kind of look like it'll start to corrode. So I spray it down with some WD-40 of some sorts or PB Blast. Wipe it all off so then it like doesn't leave that weird film on stuff. Makes it look nice too. I have this idle screw, take that out, make sure there's no O-rings on anything that we're gonna soak. 4-stroke with an air screw. Usually 4-strokes have a fuel screw down here on the engine side. It'll be a fuel screw. This is an air screw, pretty sure. So air screw would be lefty lean, righty rich. A fuel screw is lefty rich, righty lean. Spring. So we're running a 35 Pilot and a 92 main jet. Really big jets, man. Just gigantic stuff in here. Whatever's stock. I'm going to look up what's stock and make sure that's correct. Put that in there. I'm also going to look up if the carb kit comes with O-rings for these screws, because normally there should be an O-ring in there to seal it up, but maybe not. We'll see. She'll clean up, man. I'm going to bring this thing back to life. Alright, so we got the carb all cleaned up best as I could. Kit came with new jets, O-rings. Got the slide cleaned up. Oiled the bore into here because it was really kind of tight yet. So just clean it up, oil it, now it's all fresh. So I'm going to put this back together, throw it on here, get it dialed in, see if we can get this thing running. Float height, I didn't measure. Really careful not to bend them or nothing. Should be set fine. I don't know. Looks good to me. But basically you can bend this tab that small piece of wires on. That's the needle. But you can bend that tab to adjust float height, but hopefully you don't even have to do that. As I was doing this carb, I also did the carb on Buddy's 200X. Put the stock one back on, new gaskets, getting it dialed in. It finally started now with the stock carb where it didn't before, and it's because I think I had the wrong needle in it and the gaskets were leaking. So, but then it didn't want to stay running, it kept dying, so I put a bigger pilot in it for that exhaust. So I'm gonna see how that works tomorrow. So I didn't get it on video, but the bike starts up good, carburetor is dialed. But when I go to put it in gear, the bike just lurched forward and died. And I push started the bike while it was in gear, rode around the yard, just dumping the clutch, trying to get it to free up. But the clutch is locked up. Something's wrong with it. It's probably rusted from sitting, so we're gonna have to tear it apart, see what's going on. Why do they use Phillips heads? Why? Like, yeah, you're not supposed to get this that tight. Like, you have to get it somewhat tight before the bit strips out the head. Careful. I was wondering what this adjustment screw does. So down here, it's like it moves this in and out. It kind of just adjusts the pivot point, I guess, of the clutch fork. So we got this off. Gasket looks reusable too. Didn't rip it off or anything. So see, why couldn't Honda have done this design with the 200X to where the kicker spring is right under the clutch cover? So if you have any issues with that, you got to split the case on 200X. Anyway, what's going on with this clutch? I think we just got to take it apart and oil it up. Maybe it's a little rusted. Wow, this is just a mini 200X basically. I thought this was a lot different. Oil pumps right here. Oil comes in here right into the crank and also gets pressurized up into the cylinder head. We got this weird, ooh. Yeah, this must have just sat for a while because that's like crud just baked on sludge. But I'm just going to take this apart, clean it, put it back together. I'm not going to measure nothing. So, like, I didn't expect the clutch on this thing to be sticky. Now, I'm going into 200X teardown mode because this is really familiar to me with old Hondas, you know. I guess they're all the same. Bearing is still good. That's nice. Wee little springs. Wait, that's it? Huh. Usually there's a nut here, but I guess it's not needed. Washer. Oh. Oh, yeah. Wow. I always wonder how this happens. This thing sits in oil its whole life, and it rusts. It must just start from the top down, because oil level is really only about here, maybe. It is stuck together. So all we're going to do is pry this apart, clean it up, Scotch-Brite it, re-oil it, put it back in, and it should work. Just peeking around. The clutch is supposed to be black, but... So there's the steel part right now. It's all brown. You know, it's pretty brown. I don't know what caused this besides sitting. Like, it's very, looks like caked on. Pry those apart. See there? That's all we had to do, really, for this to work again. But I go to wipe my hands, and it's like, it smells like old gas. Like, why does the oil smell like old gas? Well, it could just be from the carburetor running so rich that it's washing out the rings and it's getting into the oil, which is not good as far as the longevity of this engine. But you can see, like, the oil looked really thin. It was black, but it didn't look bad. Like, it wipes off your hands fine. Like, if your oil is way past its life cycle, it'll like stain your hands, I guess, but this, it'll wipe right off. That's basically the detergents in the oil keeping stuff clean. But it smells like gas. I don't know. This oil, who knows when it was last changed. Maybe I will clean this up. I'll clean up what I can, actually. It's not like the carburetor's jetted way too rich to where it's just flooding the engine. And that might be partially why this is starting to corrode, because the oil's been like thinned down over the years. You can see how deep these grooves are in between each one. I mean, that's how much meat you have left on the clutch. And then on the back side, I noticed it just looked a bit thinner. Although the size of this clutch, we might be in luck. The size of this clutch might be the same as 200X. I don't know. Wow. We're in luck. The Honda Horde has given back. So I'm thinking, well, if this needs a clutch, that's another part I'm going to have to order. Gonna have to tell my friend, hey, waiting on parts again. It's going to be another week at least. Well, actually, Honda 200X, XR80, same thing. So the frictions will work, and the steels are pretty rough. Wait, those match up the same. So I'm not even going to try to save this clutch, although it was kind of fun pulling this apart. I mean, I could resurface this and give it back to him, but we're going to put a new clutch in this thing because I just have the parts laying around. What am I going to do with them? It's only about half for what we had here. We got one. What? That's it? We got 2 steels and 3 frictions. Okay, that's like half of what I'm used to. We got this style, or this is like the OEM style that probably came out of my 3-wheeler. Might actually use those. It's not a bad idea to put in heavy-duty clutches in them because usually heavier adults like us like to ride them instead of what they were designed for kids. It's usually drunk guys around the campfire that weigh over 200 pounds that like to ride these things. We're gonna hook them up with a new clutch. Getting this cleaned out. I'll wipe it all down. But this hole right here lines up this thing at the end of the crank. Oil goes through here. So I'm gonna blow that out because it also goes through this hole, up into this hole in this case. That's how the top end gets oil. So I'm gonna blow that out, make sure it's clean. I'm just gonna put some silicone just on the bottom half of here because the only place oil is gonna leak out is on the bottom half. So yeah, she's gonna be pretty fresh. So yeah, don't take your clutch covers off and coat the whole thing in way too much silicone. Because if you get silicone up in here, this sprays oil up through here. And that meets up with this gap in the case right here. You can see we got that pipe coming right in from the oil pump. Goes up here to the top end. And it goes into this tiny pinhole. If you guys can even see that right there. Goes into that hole. This isn't my 200X, this is my buddy's, but what I did on mine was I coated that whole thing with silicone because I was worried my case halves were gonna leak, which they still did because they're welded, but I went overboard with that and oil wasn't going up to the top end, and one of the gears broke in the transmission because there just wasn't enough oil pressure, not enough oil flow. I mean, I could see somebody doing that. Like, if you rip this gasket off and make your own, I could see that being a big problem for some people. But I'm telling you this now because I've been through this crap, and that's what I've figured out.
Macho Man ever cried?
Oh, yeah.
Really?
Uh-huh. It's okay for macho men to show every emotion available right there, you know, because I've cried 1,000 times, I'm gonna cry some more.
That gasket may have leaked at one point in its life. I think it still has a lot of life left in it, but we're gonna have to keep up on them oil changes, run fresh gas, run her hard. I feel like I've made this video so many times and then never posted it. Because I did my clutch, I did my buddy's clutch, now I'm doing this clutch. But that goes in there. We got the frictions. The steels, one side will have a burr, one side has less of a burr. I don't know if it matters which way you put them, but I'm putting the burr outside, and I just like to do that just to face them all the same way. My stuff doesn't really matter, but maybe on like high horsepower street bikes, you might notice slippage, or maybe just the life of the clutch is, I don't know. I don't know if it matters. Leave a comment. So we got that in here. Try to line this up best we can. Wow. Okay, there we go. It's all meshed together. We got all this slop in here, but once we tighten up these bolts, that'll pull it all together. Having a good snap ring pliers makes your life a whole lot easier.
This is the WrestleMania Report.
I will not only embarrass you, not only pin you with the 1, 2, 3 count, but I'm gonna put you out of wrestling for good.
I used to just pry at them with screwdrivers, and that's stupid. Put a little silicone on there just so it doesn't leak, because I'm not getting a new gasket, because that's just gonna hold us up. You probably don't even need silicone, but I just don't want it to leak. Get all these started by hand. Don't use the impact. And you're supposed to torque them down to a certain amount of inch-pounds, but...
Didn't need them then, don't need them now!
The one time I did that, I broke one. I think my wrench was set to foot-pounds. They don't have to be super tight. Once you get it started like that, you want to make sure the springs are sitting on there good and not all crooked. Go a little bit at a time. Usually shove a coin or something in here to stop that from spinning. I don't have a coin, but I do have an old brake pin. It's actually a brand new one. That's as tight as I'm getting. Just I'm not using the very far end of the ratchet. I'm just going right here, because you can either strip these out pretty easily or snap one off. What is that? Oh. The button thing. Oh yeah, also make sure this doesn't fall out. I'm just gonna throw some anaerobic on here. This stuff is nice. It works good for valve covers, case halves. Maybe not case halves, but well, yeah, on a snowmobile, case halves, stuff like this. It doesn't dry unless it's smushed together. So this tube never dries out when it's in your toolbox like silicone does. Works pretty good. That's all I know. But it's real liquidy. It only hardens if it's airtight. It's not gonna flake off and end up in your oil system. All right, looks good to me, man. This is usually where I forget something and then I put it all together. Stuck on the dowel pin. Nice. Now I have to see how to actually adjust this. I think you loosen it up, and as you back this adjuster part out, your clutch lever free play will go away. And then I think right as it's at like 0 amount of slack, you tighten this down. Then you can add a little bit more slack up at your lever end so that it's not too tight. We want to make sure these bolts are tight, but not to where we're stripping them out. So my impact screwdriver, I switched to the tightening mode, and then we'll just give them a tap at the end. You grab this. If you're loosening the bolt, turn this and it'll lock in. But now we're going to be tightening, so we turn it the other way and it clicks. This is just a cheap one. I'd like to get a better one, but it worked. I did this just so I know where all the bolts go. You don't have to do this because it'll be obvious. For me, it's just an organization thing. Basically, you should put all these bolts in till they bottom out, and then make sure they're all sticking out the same length. I just took them out clockwise or counterclockwise, whatever. And this thing was probably never taken apart in its life. We pretty much know all these bolts are in the right spot. Nothing's been monkeyed with on this thing. So now I'm just gonna go around and give them a tap tap. So this adjusts the free play in this arm before it comes in contact with the clutch itself. So I backed this out, loosened the nut, backed it out. I'm gonna hit it with some oil. I'm gonna move it in and out a bit. So basically go till you can feel resistance, but we just gotta get this oiled up a little bit. So if I move the clutch in and out, we got a lot of slop here. So I'm gonna back this out. As I'm turning this, I can kind of feel where it gets harder to turn. So that's right about where we're seated. Basically till there's 0 lash. We're gonna hold this in place, tighten the nut down. Shout out to D-Ray Smith. Pretty sure his videos showed me how to do this and how to tighten up timing chain. All these old Hondas are the same. Oh, yikes. Don't strip out your buddy's Honda. This is pretty tight. You want to have a little bit of slop in here so that your clutch isn't dragging all the time. Screw this in a little. Tighten that down. So this clutch should work now. It starts right up with the choke on. It started first kick today, so I'd say the carburetor's dialed. It was a little boggy when you're in like second gear and you just crack on it. Might just be how it was because the clutch was hanging up. Putting oil in here. 2 new bolts holding this heat shield. Almost full. I know this is motorcycle and I'm using ATV oil, but it's actually the same. It's fine. It's made for wet clutches. Semi-synthetic. Some people say if you run conventional oil and then you switch to synthetic, your clutch is going to slip. I run synthetic in pretty much everything and never had an issue. Alright, so this thing should start. I should be able to pop it in gear with the clutch in and it shouldn't lurch forward. Let's see what happens. Choke's on. We're in neutral. Could give it a smidge of throttle. We're in first gear. Alright, it works. Sweet, but it works. Awesome. Fixed the clutch with stuff I had laying around in the garage. We changed oil, which we had to do anyway. We cleaned the carburetor. Carburetor works, air filter's on the way. I adjusted the throttle cable, I adjusted the clutch cable, and it starts first kick. Wow.
Because it's mind-boggling to you, yeah.
Old Hondas, man.